morning, everyone, and welcome to American Scousers Morning Coffee or Tea with American Scouser on a Friday morning where we are more reckless than usual. So reckless that Anan is out there like little elves making furniture to sell. So he's not here, but Kazi is in action. What's happening?
I'm wonderful, yeah. After my Thursday night escapades to then join the Friday crew, it feels like, this is it now. This is like my routine. I'm a part of the Baldies on Thursday nights.
I saw that yesterday. So much reflection on the screen. It wasn't even funny. Yeah.
And then we put a picture of Pep Guardiola up and just added to our nuance.
But no, Anand, but Gordo is in the house. What's happening?
What's going on, guys? Every morning show this week except the one I'm supposed to be on.
Yeah, what the hell?
I had to get a last-minute presentation at the tree conference on Wednesday. So
what are you presenting at the tree conference? You're like,
I was actually on a panel about utility forestry vegetation management. So it was.
I would love to be there, but we would probably get kicked out in like 10 minutes.
That's the most boring sentence ever said on the Friday show. Like, never has it been more boring than what just said.
Who's hosting that panel? Like, when a question comes, you're like, Gordon, we should go to you on this one.
That's we go vegetation again. Yeah.
Yikes. I mean, hey, it's not that much different than the international break in some ways, but we are back in action tomorrow Sunday against Southampton. Some big games tomorrow. We'll be here actually for the live watch along for the City Spurs game. We'll talk a little bit about that because we were talking about before we went live over here. I think we are anticipating or hoping for some good results tomorrow with Arsenal playing Forest at home, and then obviously City and Spurs. The Spurs do have a tradition of getting something out of them. I think the styles really clash, so we'll talk about that. Let's talk about the pre-match press conference. Couple of tidbits in terms of injury. So let's start with Ali first. We talked a bit about this on Wednesday. So he's not going to be ready for this game. It didn't sound like he would be ready for Madrid either. But Gordo, I'll ask you first. The tricky situation is, as comfortable as we are with Kelleher, it's a no-brainer that Ali is going to get his spot back. Goalies are different than guys on the pitch, but is there a better game for him to come back to? Or do you feel any anxiety having his first game back, the City game, for example?
Well, yeah, that's kind of a double-edged sword because I think there's never a great time to get thrown back into a team that's kind of flying at the moment. Kelleher has definitely earned his place. He's made a couple of world-class saves over the last 3 games. And so it's one of those situations that if it goes right, everyone will say, yep, he belongs, as the number one. And if something goes wrong, everyone will go, why did we throw him back? Why was this the game that we chose? So I think it's sort of it is a lose-lose in my opinion, because the game's got to go right. But it is Alisson we're talking about. This is a world-class goalkeeper. If he does come in, the manager knows, the coach knows that this is the right game for him to come back to. He's fully fit. He feels confident. And, I think if I had to choose, it'd probably be a game like Southampton, like an easier game. They're probably not going to get a whole lot of chances. It's something that I feel like the defensive line in front of him is going to be able to take most of what's thrown at him. But it is one of those that it's got to go right, because if it goes wrong, there's going to be a lot of questions.
Yeah, he hasn't started team training yet. But you would think if he trains all week this week, I still don't think, obviously, he's going to be ready for Madrid, even though obviously the press conference was today. I don't see it 4 days. I don't know, like goalies are, like I say, a different animal, Kazi. But would you feel any anxiety if his first game is against City? Or would you rather have a goalie like Ali against City?
I think the boost it would give the fans on that day to see Ali back in the starting 11 would be, I feel, you know what I mean? I think it would always like an extra. By the way, I don't think we'd need a lift anyway for that game, but it would give you that extra little bump. Keepers are hard and keepers are different, but what no one ever talks about is you can't keep the keeper 20 minutes.
Yeah.
You don't sub keepers. So it's either you start or you don't. So when does he start then? Then you go, well, fucking hell, Newcastle away on a Wednesday seems hard. And then you go, well, you want to do him with Goodison Park? He's got to play a game, hasn't he? Like, he just has to come back in. It's not like, I always think about this with Alisson. It's not like you're dealing with a Kostas Robertson level. Where the level, as much as I like Kelleher's here and Alisson is levels above, in my opinion.
Yeah. Thank you for saying that, because the conversation almost has been we're comparing
but it's not like, oh, Robertson and like Kostas are there. It's not, Robertson's better than Kostas, but you can definitely deputise for him as Kelleher has. But you're talking about the best goalkeeper in the world, and I don't think it's close. Like that's the level you're talking about. And if you don't start the best goalkeeper in the world in your biggest game in 3 years, I do think it's a bit insane if he's fully fit and he's trained for the week. Again, you can't get him 20 minutes. Maybe there's a behind the closed door friendly that you kind of set up with the under-23s or another bum team that wants to get fit, and you kind of do something like that, but he just has to play them.
I mean, the good thing is, sadly, Ali has been injured a lot, so he's the goalie that's used to coming back from injury. Not a lot of goalies are really, because you rarely get injuries, and if it's injuries, it's like long term. Ali has a lot of these muscle things go to where he's been out for like 3 weeks, 4 weeks, and stuff like that. So in some ways, there's a thing to be said about being used to coming back from injury and knowing what you need to do to get back to the pace of the game. Yeah,
that's a good way to look at it. And like you said, goalkeepers are different anyway. They're different animals. It doesn't take them too much. And you can't give them 20 minutes, but they're really only in action, a third of the game if you're having a really good game. So it's not like they can get into the flow of the game as well, because I think it's a lot harder for somebody that's in the middle of the pitch to come back after a few weeks than somebody between the sticks. Goalkeepers, especially world-class goalkeepers like Alisson, you get one save, even if it's a clean one, you just get your hands on the ball and roll it out, and play goes on, and that's sometimes enough just to kickstart the game.
Yeah, I also think as well, by the way, with the Alisson injury this year, I do think he was carrying it previously, because he was out for the AC Milan game, if you remember, and then gets injured 2 weeks later, and you could see the way he kicked the ball, like he knew he did it, like that was the one. Mm-hmm. Like it felt like he was one that he was already carrying. Do you know what I mean? And I feel like, I'm not saying it's on the manager, far from it, but it's very hard to go to Ali. We need to rest you for a week. You know what I mean? When you're in. It's very I just think that's a difficult conversation to have. I do feel, as much as Kelleher played last year, and for people who don't know, we did play more games than Alisson last year for Liverpool. I do think that he was carrying it already, and he knew what he did straight away. And if he's fit, then I think he just has to play, man. I really do.
Meanwhile, Amadeus says, who would you recommend me to support? Okay, here's what you got to do, dude. I don't know where you're at. It sounds like you're from Asia somewhere based on the players you watched, but here's what you do. You follow, subscribe, and you are now a Liverpool fan because you don't want to go anywhere else. We just adopted you. So you are now a Liverpool fan. It's not glory hunting. It's the best club. So hit that like, subscribe. You'll know all you need to know about Liverpool over here, and you're set.
I was going to say, the three of us on this podcast, it's not glory hunting because we've seen some dark days.
Yes, exactly. So it's not glory hunting. It's kind of like...
Whenever I was going to the game a lot when I lived in Liverpool, and it was Roy Hodgson's season when Kenny came back. That was my most one I went to the game the most. And I remember going to Bolton away for I think we lost 4 on the bounce on the Hodgson, and Maxi Rodriguez scored a last-minute winner, deflected in. It felt like we won the Champions League. I've never heard the ground erupt like it in my life. And it's just like when I look back now and think to myself, my God, I think we had lost 4 or 5 on the bounce, genuinely, and we were dreadful. We were awful all game, and Maxi Rodriguez just bundles one in front of us. We snapped the chair when I was bouncing on it and everything. It was just insane.
You know what's funny? I was listening to something. Somebody was talking about, I think he's on NFL.com or something like that. But he was talking about, I'm assuming he's a Chicago guy. And he was talking about watching Bears games. And he was talking about how emotionless, Bears lost another tough one where they got a field goal. I was like, oh, this is kind of like, I used to watch Liverpool games like that. Just... emotionless. I really connected when he was talking about he saw the field goal blocked and he was just numb. Yeah. And I was like, I've been there. You would just watch games just numb and just emotionless, and you'd be like, okay, here we go. And then just get up and go about your day. But Yeah, so
122 losses I watched this year for my beloved White Sox, so I know exactly.
120. How many games is he?
They
He's
lost.
also a guy who knows
It was-
nothing about this game.
Worst team in baseball history this year.
Wow.
also you're so Derek is actually in New Jersey. I would definitely my buddy who is like my best friend from high school. He's a very non-sports dude, but he has a daughter now who kind of like started playing soccer and stuff. So they're rooting for a team. So they ended up City fans, which see that's glory hunting when you're like a City fan. Nobody's a City fan. City fans themselves aren't a City fan. That's why the stadium is not full. So you want to go with a team where people are going to be at the pub with you, or people are going to talk to you even when they lose. I think if City goes back to where they were, which we'll talk about them, they did lose against Premier League today earlier. So we will definitely talk about them a little bit as well. But going back to this Allison thing, I mean, I'm like really confused. Why do you guys think he gets? I mean, I like the kids. He's done well. I mean, he's probably the best number 2. We talked about where we rank him, Kazi. I think it was last year. Yeah, like in the league and stuff. But like people are almost like, oh, you feel bad for him and stuff. I mean, if Van Dijk was gone, just because Kwanzaa played really great while he was gone, we wouldn't have this conversation and be like, oh, poor Kwanzaa. And it would be like a no-brainer. Why do you think there is this like a different level of empathy and like, oh, poor Kelleher, he shouldn't lose his spots just because Ali came back? Kind of thing.
Do you think it goes down to where Kwanzaa, at least in that analogy, that you can get him 20 minutes here and there? I do feel like that is a thing, and you just don't come back, and that's how it is. And the one thing I'd say with Kelleher, if I'm Ali right now, I'd be sitting Ali down going, you're not playing a domestic cup competition this year, and you're not even playing in the final if we get there. Like, you need to be ready for the other 2 competitions. You're not playing against Girona away or the other Champions League. If Liverpool beat Madrid, he's no way going to Girona. Like, absolutely not. He's not playing PSV. He's not playing Lille, I think. He's not playing those games. He's not playing Southampton away, funny enough, in the League Cup. He's not playing the FA Cup games. And just say to them, because of that reason as well. There's also a part of this for Liverpool, where it benefits Liverpool doing that, is that you might get more money for Kelleher. Let's get it right. Kelleher's leaving in the summer because we've got another keeper coming in. So he's definitely going. It might work out better. It might work out great for you if he goes as another standout performance in the League Cup final or an FA Cup final. You know what I mean? And you're desperate for a keeper. I think you can put an extra 10 million on him. Because of his age, he's 25. It's super young for a goalkeeper.
Yeah, he is.
And homegrown, too, which is an added benefit.
I say this all the time about the homegrown thing, mate. And it is a thing that Liverpool always have to look out for. That's why I couldn't believe they did this Mahmoud-Ashvili unless they really think he is going to be top level. Because finding homegrown keepers and that's why Scott Carson gets a contract. And that's why Lee Grant used to get a contract. And that's why Andy Lonergan got a contract at Liverpool. It's because you were homegrown. So it does help, and that's what Kelleher does. So I just feel like that's where the empathy does go with him. You just can't give him minutes. But I think if you sit down with Alisson and Kelleher and go, this is how I'm playing it this year, you're not good. Basically, Alisson should never win the FA Cup again or the League Cup again. You might get
I think you're in a situation where you can say, and Ali would have to agree, that Kelleher has earned more games. So you take these 2 competitions, Champions League. I still say Champions League, maybe the group stages, like you're saying, could be an exception where you could pick Kelleher there. But once we advance, Ali gets these 2 tournaments, you get these 2 tournaments as far as we go, kind of an ordeal. And I think it's fair to both parties. I mean, Ali probably is not going to be happy because he's kind of like Mo-like in that sense. I mean, and goalies want to play. They don't have the wear and tear as much as like like on the pitch. But yeah, it's definitely good to have him back. Like I say, I'm shocked with same thing happened with like Robertson when he was out for a while. Like Costas made 2 good crosses and everybody is like, well, he's playing well. It's like it's freaking Robertson. He's coming back. I'm not talking about this latest version of Robertson, but this was like 2 seasons ago or something like that, right? And I was like, what? Because he made 2 crosses? Come on. Like, it's Robertson's spot. Angie was so upset. Angie's a huge Robertson fan. She was like, they're so unfair to Robertson. I was like, Jota and
Trent.
What's the other name? Trent maybe for Real, which that's an interesting one. Do you want like a Trent going against Vinicius?
No. No,
right? I mean, yeah, might as well. Why don't you wait till City game then? Because I don't want him holding it, because it was a hammy too, right? Of all things. So you don't want to get that out there like that.
I just don't want to have the conversation. I just don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear the build-up. I'd rather him come out on the Tuesday and go, yeah, he's out. And just fucking, I don't want to hear it for the fucking hours of build-up, hours after the game. I just don't want to hear it. If he's even a fucking 80%, like 80% fit, 90%, no. Absolutely, just basically, for Liverpool at least, and the benefits here is twofold. Number one, it's not the centre of attention. And number two, the bigger game for Liverpool, City. So just get him ready for City and go from there. And by the way, City's wingers right now are not very good. So I think Trent could really thrive in that game as well. So.
Yeah, I mean, I get it. I pull a hamstring just watching Vinicius run. So I don't know if I want like Trent defending him with a hammy that he just came back from. And hamstrings are always the worst. I mean, it's you don't want to rush it, because then it can really push everything back up another like 2 to 3 weeks and stuff like that. So why even risk him out there? Elliott's is another interesting one, Gordo. He's back. But Slot talked a lot about in the press conference about Konate, how when he didn't play the summer and stuff like that, which, we took it as a good thing. Apparently not as much, because he said he needed more like games to get back in form and stuff like that. When do you think realistically we start seeing Elliott get some meaningful minutes?
That's a good question. I mean, we are getting into the very busy season, the time of year that makes or breaks the season. And you pick up the injuries. Everyone picks up injuries. You can't escape from it. You've got 3 competitions going. You're in the middle of the holiday season. It's cold. You're starting to get sicknesses as well. Players start dropping. So I don't think it's a question that we see him soon, because you've got to get some rotations here. But we have to remember, this is the forgotten man. I mean, this is a guy that when in any not just us at an American Scouser, but any Liverpool podcast, any Premier League podcast talking about the depth of Liverpool, he's often forgotten this season because of how well we've been doing and the rotation that we've got with players that basically like technically new signings like Gravenberch, who's just been playing electrically, and we haven't really missed him. So this is in my opinion, this is an auxiliary player that will come back and surprise people. So at this moment, we don't need him. So there's no need to rush him back if he's not 100% fit. He should play when he's like ready to go, and we need him, not a moment before, because you don't want him. The way that Slot's midfield system works, they control the entire game. And if he's not up to speed when we're clicking in larger games, that's going to be a huge glare. I mean, we see it all the time. When somebody has a bad game in that midfield 3, it's glaringly obvious, because it all breaks down whenever they're at the ball or whatever they're trying to defend. And if we put him in too early, I mean, it's, in my opinion, it's not worth it. I think he's, like I said, auxiliary, and we can afford to keep him out until he's 100% ready to go and Slot's ready to put him back in. And I think he's going to be a pivotal piece into deciding if we can make it through this December period as well as we've come into it.
And honestly, we have not seen enough of him. Unfortunately, he got injured early, so we did not see enough of him, Kazi, in this new system. Yeah. Before, I always saw his strength as getting the system, like getting what Klopp wants, moving the ball around faster and stuff like that, doing all the little things that maybe the guy he came in off the bench for wasn't doing, and all that. The chemistry with Mo on the right hand side and all that. Do you think how much of that translates? I can't really until I see it. I don't know if I'm sold, because one thing that Szoboszlai brings that we miss sometimes when he's not there is the physicality, size, and speed, which are not things that Elliott has. So do you think, without really seeing a lot of it, not having a sample size, how do you see it working for Elliott?
Good question. I think really well in certain games. I'd give him 20 this weekend. I think Southampton's a great opponent for him. I think if he's fit, because he has been fit, he's been training all week for the last couple of weeks, I think, like 10 days or something. Like, he has been there. I think Southampton's a great opponent for him, just to come in, because the way they play, in terms of very slow and passive, I just think he could get loads of space and really open them up. I'd give him 20 probably against Madrid, and I'd probably start him at Newcastle away in a weird way, in terms of.
So you have a lot of confidence sounding like.
I do, mate, yeah, but I also think as well, the next 8 games, I think we have Southampton away again, the League Cup, 90.
Yeah.
Girona away, 90. I think
well, if we get any points off of Real Madrid, I mean, you could start whoever the hell you want against Girona.
Yeah,
This is what I'm saying. So there's actually games there, and I know, and I agree with you. We're coming into the busy season, but the only way a player becomes an option is if you play him. So that's the only way he does become an option. So you have to trust him eventually. Listen, the dream scenario is Liverpool 3-0 up within an hour against Southampton, and you come in and you can just play the ball around and get a little bit of match fitness, and we all have a lovely time. And then you get to Real Madrid, where I think you can experiment, at least for 3-4 players, I think. Still go out there strong. But yeah, I think if there's someone who's carrying a little bit of a knock or you fancy giving an hour rest to, that's where your Elliott could come in. And then I say Newcastle away is because I just think the City game at home could be such an intense game of football for our midfield that you get to the Wednesday that you might just want to rest one. Like Szoboszlai and go, Szoboszlai, you just ran 16k versus City. You can, you know what I mean? You can have an hour out and we're just going to do Elliott. And let's get this right. If Liverpool win the next 2 games, it's not the end of the world drawing away at Newcastle. It's not the end of, I hope people's heads don't fall off of me saying that. It will not be the end of the world drawing away at a very good Newcastle side. See what I mean? But beating City allows you to draw away.
Mm-hmm.
That allows you then to give you that 8-point gap. Just go, fucking hell, lads. If it doesn't work out, and that's how the manager has to think. By the way, I actually think he has to take the games, including the derby, in a group.
Chunks.
And go, I've got to make sure I'm managing this correctly, because after you get out the derby, you got Girona away, Fulham at home, and then Southampton away in the cup.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They're ones that you can't. I think right now with this is Liverpool's toughest run all season. Maybe probably till the last 4 or 5 towards the end of the season is really hard. But I'm also hoping the league's tied up by then, to be honest. But I mean, again, I just think with Elliott, I would love to give him 20 against Southampton. I think it's a lovely, lovely game to throw him back into.
I mean, I know, when he was asked in the press conference, about figuring out the lineups and stuff like that. I mean, any manager is not going to be like, I already know who's starting against City. They're going to be looking at the game. But I do think he has to look at, and I'm hoping he's looking at it like this Madrid game. I know this feels odd to say. I was saying it on Wednesday too. It's Real Madrid, but I really don't care, man. I could not care less about that game. So you do whatever with the focus on Saturday. I know there's something to be said about, momentum and stuff like that, but hell, I mean, you need the fresher legs to go against City, because that's like a 6-point game. You take the 3 points out of that, and I really think I don't see. I mean, Derek is asking who are the biggest threats. So we'll talk about a couple of news coming from those guys or regarding those guys with City and Arsenal. I really don't see. I know they can go on a run, the tables can turn or whatever, and they do have the easier fixture on paper going into these next 3-4 weeks. But we know now that everybody was in the early part of the season, oh, you guys have the easy fixtures and stuff like that, and then they lost points to some of those teams that we played. There's no really easy fixtures when it comes to the Premier League, especially away and stuff like that. You got to win every game. It is a tough battle every single game.
I remember fans when we lost to Forest, we're going, you've lost to Forest, and then Forest is not to be really good.
Yeah, exactly.
I remember a couple of years ago, I think we drew with Fulham away in the first game of the season, and everyone's heads fell off. I'm we don't know if Fulham are good or not. We had no idea. That's just we need to figure out who's good. And I think right now, with being 11 games in, we know who's kind of good and who's kind of shit. Do you know what I mean? I think we kind of know. So
but honestly, even with Southampton, and we'll talk at the end, as we do our predictions and stuff like that, but I can see that game going either way in terms of it's either going to be an easy game, like you're saying, they're going to make mistakes as they're building, and we're going to get a couple of easy goals and we're going to cruise, or it could be a tough battle if they're on their game and we can't, win the ball up top. So I can, every game has its own challenges. So there's nothing is on paper as an easy 3 points and stuff. So when you look at Arsenal's schedule and you're yeah, they should easily beat Leicester, well, you never freaking know. And that's why they play the games. Okay, let's get to the couple of news around the league, and then we'll get to the game. I was kind of waiting for this because I was watching some stuff about this yesterday. The fact that the league threw it up for a vote, I mean, always shows that they're kind of confident in what the result is going to be. Does this mean anything in grand scheme of things? Because I know the opposites would be brutal, Gordo, but does that really give hope?
So I did it, unfortunately, for all of our listeners on Drink Inside the Box. I did a deep dive into APT rules because I felt like this was going to set a lot of precedent for the
From the pre-conference to that, so you had an exciting week, my friend.
Let me tell you, that was the most boring. That was the most boring research I've ever done in my whole life. This one doesn't make any sense to me in terms of you have to figure out who is releasing these press conferences, because when the initial verdicts came out, basically the Premier League said it upheld all these are fine. There's just a couple of verbiages that don't make any sense, but the rules in themselves, in the entirety, make sense. It seems like everyone agrees on it. I think we basically pushed this to the side. City representatives came out and said, if the verbiage is wrong on a couple of them, it null and voids everything. We found out that the Premier League's bullshit, and none of this has any teeth because the verbiage is incorrect. So both of them come away saying it's a win. And in my opinion, both of them kind of look stupid because City go after them really hard, and they kind of get all you have to do is change some rules, and then the league looks stupid because they've spent all this money on, and then realize that, oh, there's some loopholes in our verbiage. To me, all this is if you look at a war situation, sometimes you have these feints just to test the strength of certain lines. You're looking at a Roman legion. You've got you've got feints. And in my opinion, City has seen what happened to Leicester and how they got away with it. And they've seen this where there's okay, this is what we need to attack, because whoever their lawyers were that wrote these laws down wasn't really paying attention to the nuances of the verbiage. And so maybe that's the way that we attack. So I think this has more implications for the bigger sanctions in that battle than it does for anything in here. And in my opinion, it's not going to change too much because the clubs voted on the minimal change. I mean, it's basically the same rule. It just says, there's minute changes to two sentences in two different rules. Yeah. So I don't think that this has any implications. It also cannot retroactively be in place. So it's from here on out. So it has no implications on anything in the past. But I do think that City used this as they poked the bear with a stick and they found a little bit of a weakness, and they'll use whatever they dug up in this to help them in the bigger one.
I think the fact that, when Pep signed an extension earlier this week, Kazi, suddenly that was a sign to everybody that, oh, nothing's going to come out of this, because otherwise Pep wouldn't sign an extension. And I don't know the details of the contract. There could be something over there saying hey, if this happens, adios, because I'm not sticking around. If Kevin De Bruyne is gone, so am I. Something like that in the contract. So we don't know that. But if this, I think most people felt when Pep signed that something like this would be another win for City and they were going to roll. Does this affect it? Does Pep signing, is that a sign? How do you see this thing unfolding as all these things start happening now?
I don't think, first thing says, I don't think Pep has any idea about what's going to happen in these charges. Number two, I think this win for the Premier League is, when the initial verdict happened and everyone was like, oh, City just control the media. If you throw enough shit at the wall and you just throw enough money at it, oh, look, the Premier League, and they're trying to control the narrative. The narrative always was, when the Premier League released their statements, is I don't know what they're talking about. It's just a few things that we've got to get tied off, and we're fine. Yep. The Premier League have been proven right here. But when you have enough money and lawyers and the media like City do, then you can control the narrative. And that's how this works here. In terms of them not winning, the interesting part is, I thought it'd be close, but Wolves and Everton flipped. They came to the side with the Premier League. And I think there's two reasons for that. Number one, I think Everton are actually in the process of getting bought by the Roma owners. By the way, we were batshit crazy, and I'm so excited. Hilarious. So they maybe even had the chat with those owners going, hey, we can't compete with that. We haven't got the contacts that they have to say, oh, I don't own the Etihad Airways, and it's my brother-in-law, and that kind of stuff. I don't think they have anything like that. So that's interesting. And the clubs who sided, of course, are the clubs you expect, which is Villa, Forest, and Chelsea, who sided with City. Which makes sense, especially if you're Chelsea in about 2 years, when your financial fair play records come out and your fucking head is about to fall off. I think they probably needed this to go through. But in terms of the Pep situation, mate, of signing the contract, I don't think he has any idea. I don't think anyone has any idea. And that's how it should be. That's how it should be, because this is technically still an ongoing court case. And you shouldn't have any idea about it, because that can kill it. So just I think we just let it be. In terms of Pep said, he said today, if they get relegated, I'll still be here, and I do believe that. I actually do take his word for it. What I would say, if you're Pep Guardiola, it's sometimes a bit weird to me that he's held up in this big shining light, and he also failed 2 drug tests in his playing career, which is
that's interesting. Do you guys really think Pep would stay? You think Pep would stick around if they got relegated?
Yeah, I think this is part of this year. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I'm with Gordo. I think there's definitely a part of this where Pep first of all, Pep's come out and said it today in his press conference, but I also think that he's kind of excited a little bit by the challenge in a weird way. I actually kind of think he looks at Slot and is giving a bit of energy again, going, all right.
Yeah, something different, right?
Yeah, like sort of a bit different, sort of a bit new. Do you know what I mean? I do think there is that. I also think that this is this first really big rebuilding job he's got to do. We spoke about this last night on the Thursday show. Like, it's a bigger rebuild than you think. Kyle Walker's 34, De Bruyne is 32 or 33, Bernardo Silva's 30. I think there's like 6 or 7. Akanji's 29, Ake's 29. You know what I mean? And then I actually think there is a part of that as well. So this could be. I think he's excited by the prospect. But what I will say here, I think he's signed knowing how much money he's got to spend in the summer, and I think he knows that I need 5 or I need 6. Can I get these 6? And they go, yeah. And then he goes, okay, I'll sign them. I do think that's a part of the conversation.
Meanwhile, by the way, I mean, this is like a really quick news thing, but this was out this morning, I think. About 8 hours ago, there you go. That Rodri is like, I sure like Real. So like everybody's like window shopping at the same time while things are happening in the background. They're like, I would not mind the Real. It's the best club.
By the way,
the best club is.
Can I just say this, right? Because this is really important when it comes to these players in Real Madrid. What are they going to say? No, I don't like them. No, I don't fancy winning the Champions League every year, lads. Nah, it's not really my cup of tea. Yep. Do you know what I mean? Like, of course, any foreign player's going to say that I want to play for fucking Real Madrid.
I mean, especially like dude is from Spain. I mean, it makes a lot more sense. But he did say the best, and like I think most players are politically correct enough to say, oh, it's one of the most successful clubs and stuff like that. But you don't want to say the other club is the best because. It's better than especially on a top club and stuff like that. But I thought it was interesting because I can kind of definitely see that happening. I don't know when his contract is up. And here's another thing. Like, we don't know how he's going to come back, when he's going to come back and stuff. So, like, okay, why don't you guys enlighten me on this? It never made sense for Everton and Wolves in the first place. Okay. So I get why Newcastle would be on City's side, right? Because they're from the same neck of the woods.
Yeah.
Why is the Pavarotti lookalike for Forest? Is he like going the body double of Pavarotti? Why is he like in this? Like, why is Forest on the other side?
Because
do they have all that money stacked up, ready to be used as well?
I think the multi-club ownership that they have. Look, and I also think as well, don't forget this is a team that's been fined points deductions because of financial fair play. And they would really like to go out and sign 24 players again, maybe. I'm not sure. But I just feel like they've got contacts, they've got people that they know who can come in and invest into the footy club, can't they? And really put Forest. But let's get it right. This is a 2-time European Cup winner. It's quite, there are
a lot of clubs like that in the Premier League that if they really wanted to, especially which so much money to be made in the league now. I mean, finding investment or getting people to chip in should not be a challenge for most clubs.
Of course, but then if you can't you can find people to chip in, but you need to give them a slice of the pie. But if you own the fucking company that he's chipping in, you're giving them no slice of the pie.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's your pie. So it's just, I do think there is that part of this. Do you know what I mean? Where they go, well, my brother-in-law owns this and it's worth 600 million and he wants to throw 300 million at it. And we think, a sleeve sponsor on the training kits for away games is worth 300 million. Then, you know what I mean? I think that's a part of the path. And then Villa are a very rich club, and by the way, ambitious club. Villa were very close to breaking financial fair play last year. I can't really sold that they got over the line. They had to finish in the Champions League, I think. I couldn't remember what happened, but Villa were close. And then, of course, Chelsea and Newcastle are just whatever they want to be, So.
But so they only had Newcastle and Forest vote with them today, though, right? Did I see that right?
No, 4. Yeah.
Who's the 4?
Forest, Chelsea. I think it was Newcastle and Villa.
Oh, okay. I didn't realize. Like, I know they were talking about Villa. I thought Villa flipped as well, along with the other.
Wolves and Everton flipped. because it was that's what I'm saying. It was 14-6, and you only need 13-7 to pass.
Yeah.
So they were hoping that you could flip one more. Do you know what I mean? That's what they were hoping for, City. That all we need to do is flip one, and then it's ours. But happily, can't believe I'm saying this, but thank you, Everton, for doing that.
Before we move on to like Arsenal real quick with some of their news, I mean, with City, do you Gordo think all this affects the team and is part of the reason, or is it more about the aging and stuff Kazi was talking about, and more importantly, Rodri, the Real Madrid fan, not being there?
What you mean, like
the reason, like how do you expect them to come back? For example, do they come back now? Like Pep is back, we're all back, kind of like a get going, or they're like, oh shit, Rodri is not back, so it's gonna be the same thing on the pitch?
No, I think it has to be the rallying cry. I think that was maybe one of the big things. Maybe there was something on the table about the amount of players that Pep's going to need at the summer, and that was the sticking point. And they weren't really comfortable giving him the cash. And then his guys make the argument of, man, you lose Pep, this whole thing falls apart because you've got an aging team. Those guys are not stupid. They're looking at metrics. They're looking at that. Tons and tons of data, and I guarantee that was one of the things. It's like, who would you rather want to rebuild this? Let's say worst case scenario on the table, we get relegated and we've got to come up. Who do you want managing them coming up? Do you want somebody new? Do you want this literally the whole thing? Right now, people want to play for us. We get relegated and Pep leaves, this whole thing goes to shit. And I think that was a huge
leave him by himself. So what is happening? Robbie says, can someone tell me what the hell is happening with the 115?
No one knows. This is the thing. No one knows that. All we know right now, it's an ongoing court case, and that's it. No one knows what's actually happening. But in terms of like the form right now, Tim, it is Rodri's a big. I'm not arguing that, but there's also a part where Kyle Walker wasn't a very good defender anyway, and his pace got him out of jail. But now he's 34.
Yes,
it's only so long that pace can get you there. I didn't realize until last night when I was looking at Jack Grealish is 29. My fucking head fell off when I heard that. He's 29. Jack.
Well, he was at Villa for forever. Yeah. He went through the ranks with
Villa. He played for Villa in the 2015 FA Cup semi-final against Liverpool when we lost. He played for Villa. My fucking head, honestly, was bamboozled when I heard he played.
Drugs and alcohol, he's aged.
Honestly,
rapidly, yeah.
But I do think there's a part here where the rebuild is bigger than you think. Gundogan's old and he come back on a short term, and again, De Bruyne, Rodri might come back and go, fuck me, I need 6 months here to get back onto. Look what happened to Virgil van Dijk.
Yeah.
It took him a long time to get back to the level where we expect him to be now. You know what I mean? Kovacic is 30. He's starting every game for them because they haven't got a midfielder. They haven't got a left back. They're playing Guardiola left back. He's not a left back. Let's get this right. They don't have a left back. They have one right back. We spoke about this last night on the Thursday show. Where does Rico Lewis play? I have no idea if he's a right back. Is he a centre mid? Is he a right winger? I like him. I think he's talented, but I don't know where he plays. I don't know what his position is. You know what I mean?
I don't think they know where he plays, or he's kind of like a utility player right now, playing everywhere.
I would say that they're unlucky with, apart from Rodri, is Oscar Bob. I thought he was going to. He knows. I think he was going to get a season out of Oscar Bob this year to go. He'll get me 10 to 12 because they haven't got a winger who can score goals. They've lost Mahrez and Sterling, who would get you 15 a year, all comps every year. They haven't got it because you backed your house on Ireland, and then by the way, when Ireland's not scoring, you can't bring Alvarez on. Which is like the squad is not as big as you think.
Man. The other day they were out there and I looked at their bench, and we used to say when you used to look at City's bench, and it would be like
team there.
Like internationals. Yeah, they could be another team that would play for the top four. Yeah. And now you look, you're like, who the fuck is that? Who the hell is that? Like, there's just like nobody there.
You're right, but I think they've cut the ties. I think it's Wyoming this season. Is Wyoming? You've just got to get Phil Foden in the 10, and you've got to say to him, you've got to get me wingers scoring. You have to get Savinio and Doku on the score sheet. They have to score goals, because otherwise you can't just have one outlet of goals. This is where the traditional number 9 thing always like falls down a little bit, where you do need those options, and that's why I think Liverpool, with Liverpool's depth up front, goals can get you out of jail. Goals can make fucking good sides look great. They can make average sides look a bit shit, and that's what goals can do to you. Like I always say about the Brendan Rodgers season, Liverpool can see the 50-odd goals that year. We're fucking dog shit.
Yeah.
Like defensively, 50-odd goals and nearly won the Premier League. Are you serious?
There was no defending going on.
Do you know what I mean? But that's what goal scorers can do. And if you've only got one of them, that's fucking petrifying. Really is.
I think that's one thing. I know when Gundogan went there, I was like, fuck, because that was one. I think Rodri not being there has really held back Gündoğan, all those runs he would
And
make in the
Rodri got
box
big
and
goals.
stuff like that.
Rodri got big goals.
Yes, he did.
Champions League, Arsenal away, he used to get big goals.
Now they're having to rely on like Guardiola to get one. Arsenal defender White ruled out for a few months, says Arteta, which normally means he'll be back next week. Gordo,
he'll get 40 minutes this weekend.
No, man.
Yeah, I don't believe shit until I read it or until I see
he
it.
had surgery, to be fair. He has had surgery on a knee. So
doctored photos.
I'd like to
doctored photos. They put him in a gown. It's
great.
Is that like a big deal for those guys? You guys think? I mean,
yeah,
that's one thing that Arsenal does, and I don't know if this is a good thing, right? And I know it's like cliche, Gordo, to say like next man up and all that kind of stuff, but there's something to be said about that in terms of a squad, as opposed to kind of crying over having a funeral for like every injury in your squad. Because I think, one, it says a lot to the guy behind him that's taken, who's taken his place. And B, it kind of like sets the mood for everybody else going out there. So like, Ben is not out there kind of a thing. Who's going to go to the tan salon? Just like, who's going to fill the void?
Well, there are those like dramatics too that leak out from the press conference. Like it makes the whole locker room like anxiety driven. Like I had a coach one time that was like that, where like little things would set him off and it wouldn't even be that big, but his energy at the practices leading up to the match were infectious. I mean, you thought there was something on the line, and it wasn't until every once in a while you'd have to shake yourself out and go, this is not a big deal. It's one fucking player or whatever. And so that does seep in, especially when like your whole upbringing. And that's the other thing that we always forget about these players is from very, very young ages, they're in these elite programs where it's basically like you just do what you're fucking told, and this guy is going to bring you to the promised land, and you just do what he says, and it'll work out. And some of these players, they'll switch off on autopilot. This is what he told me to do. This is what he did, and they feed off that energy because they're looking, like most of these guys are in their young 20s. They're looking for this male role model, and a lot of time that is what affects their heads. And so you get a manager that literally goes to pieces for every single injury, and you're thinking like, we've got a crisis. We've got an absolute crisis. Yeah. I mean, and then it affects the media. Like these guys, they have cell phones. They're all on Instagram. They're all on Twitter. They're reading what the papers are writing as well. I mean, look at the Arsenal versus Liverpool game. Yeah. Arsenal crisis this, Arsenal crisis that. We get to the game, Liverpool's got 3 times as many players injured. And even during the match, when all those players miraculously started the game, they were still talking about an injury crisis because everybody's infected by it. So it's not a good look, and it definitely does affect the team.
Is that basically the biggest difference between Pep and Arteta, by the way, Kazi? Like, the Pep's demeanor overall is a lot, I mean, every coach, including Klopp and Slot, they're going to find things to complain about. But I just feel like his demeanor overall is like, there are a lot of times where he's like, it is what it is. Whereas Arteta feels a bit more whiny about everything. And that it's one thing to use it for one game and say, we're the underdogs. But like the season is long, that you can't spread that along an entire season and be like, we're winning despite everything. Let's just keep going. That does not last in football.
Yeah, I agree. I think Arteta's more David Moyes than Pep. I really do. And I mean, he was at Everton for like 8 years under Moyes. Like, he's going to have a fucking influence on him. Do you know what I'm saying? And I do think, and I've watched a lot of David Moyes' press conferences, and he will go on about his injuries. In terms of how Arsenal adapt here, so they can put like Calafiori or Tomiyasu or someone like that right back. But I don't think they get as forward as much as what Ben White does for them in terms of the balance. I think it does affect the balance a little bit for them. I don't think they will bomb on as much in terms of the overlapping, which can be a help and a hindrance to Saka. That's what I'm saying. It's not just, they've injured the right back. It's what does that do to your best attacking player? It's like, what does that do to him? Because if you're not going that way to take the defender away, he doesn't get space to do his trademark cutting and strike. That's where that, I think it was a Salah goal against Bologna when I can't remember the fullback just ran on. Salah just opened up. I went, fucking hell, look at all this space. I can just bend that top in, there you go, and then score, and it's lovely, and we all have a nice time. But in terms of this teammate, I just think Gordo's 100% correct in what he's saying, of like, he keeps going on about his injuries, no problem, we know you got injuries, but what does that say to the guy on the bench? Because what Jurgen Klopp used to say is, going, yeah, I've got an injury, mate, but I've got some boss fellas here, these are great. Like, you know what I mean? They'll just come in and just be great for me. You know, and don't tell me about injuries, fella. Go and try and win a cup final with James McConnell, Bobby Clark, and Neil Dan's playing.
Yeah,
100%. But that was because of Klopp, the way that Klopp handled that whole situation. It gave those guys. Yes, exactly.
Could put the arms around them and go, "You're going to fucking win me this." He's telling Jaden Dan's on the bench, "You're going to win this cup final for me." That is insane. And by the way, he nearly does with the header. I might.
Yes, he does.
I would still be in town now if Jaden Dan scores that winner for Liverpool. like this at like 10 months in time. But I just think now with Arsenal, mate, it's getting. They do what I would expect any other manager to do, where your head would fall off if you don't win against this Pep side. You get 88 points, you should win the league. I will stand by it. But that's where Liverpool, where Jurgen Klopp, I think now after he's gone, and there's a bit more of adaptation, you can kind of look at things a different way. His biggest strength is of not letting it affect them. And go, okay, you got 97 points, no problem. We'll just come back the next year and win 26 out of the first 27 games and win the league that way then. Like, okay, because we got 97 and it wasn't enough. I think Arteta, I also think he's been let down a little bit. I don't know if it's his decision on the number 9 front. I don't know if it's now starting to be his decision or if it's been his stubbornness to not get a number 9 in when Ivan Toney was standing in until the last day of the transfer window. And he got to do Sterling instead on a loan deal, which super weird, but anyway, that's by the by. And I just think there is levels to this, and I do think that he has to win a major trophy this year. And I think if Liverpool win the league, it could be the end of them. I think the fans' heads will fall off Arsenal fans' heads that a slot can just walk in and beat Pep Guardiola in the first year, and I don't think they can comprehend what that can do to someone.
And honestly, there's something to be said about a squad that's used to injuries, like the Liverpool squad. I mean, when you're kind of like used to it, they're like, these 2 are, not these 3 are out and stuff like that. And you kind of like, you're used to adjusting and doing whatever. Whereas when you're not, and something like this happens, it's a lot easier to freak out. So let's get to this game over the weekend. Gordo, as I mentioned earlier, I can see this going both ways because I worry as a lifestyle. But having said that, their style really.
Have you ever said that this like Liverpool will win this fucking game comfortably at the start of any football match?
This is literally Liverpool.
I don't think I probably never have. Unless they're
Liverpool playing
a team comprised of like American Scouts or contributors, and I was like, you never know, Gordon could be on his day.
I've watched a bit of that Colchester United in League 2. You know, well, he's got a tricky little winger. What?
Dude, I worry as a lifestyle. That's what I do. I worry. You kids go out and have fun. I'll worry for all of us over here. But I mean, the build-up from the back thing can really help. I remember, games where we play against those teams and we win the ball early, score early, and it's a party time, Gordo. But when we don't break that press, things can get a little sticky. Having said that, I feel like this system, compared to Klopp's system, is a bit more secure in the back, even when the front counter press is not effective. I felt like in the past, when we could not press and win the ball with the initial press, we were setting the boys up in the back. Maybe because Trent and Robo were always up top and stuff too, and you were leaving it to the center backs. It feels like even when a team breaks through the initial press up top on their half, we're not as exposed in the back. So it lowers the worry a bit for me, but what do you expect to see out of this one?
I'm not. I know that I also worry for a living. This one, I'm really not worried about it at all. And that usually bites us in the ass. So.
See, that worries me even fucking more.
But I mean, this is a team that like they've either been beaten, like well beaten, or they've scored first and then chipped a bunch of goals. They literally, they cannot, they're 1-1-9. Right, they've lost 9 of the opening 11, and when they've scored first against Arsenal, then were wiped off the field 3-1. I think they were 2-0 up against Leicester, and then lost 3-2. Like this is a team that literally just cannot string 90 minutes together, and they're facing a team that's right now one of the best teams in the world at stringing 90 minutes together. I mean, even look at the one game that we've really struggled in besides our loss was Ipswich, opening game of the season, and all we did was make one substitution at halftime. And we bossed the second half. I'm really not. This one does not worry me in the least. And you know what?
That's like literally worrying me as you say that. But I do agree. I mean, it's hard to argue. Go ahead, Kazi.
I'll put some money back into you if it helps, if that's what you want to hear. They did only lose 1-0 to City. They only lost 1-0 to City.
But that was a shit. Like that game was not well. Like City were not very good. That's the one thing about City this year in the losses is when they used to lose, like in years past, even last year, it was always like a shock. Like, oh, they had 75% possession, they had all these shots, and then like the team they play, like I always think about that Crystal Palace game, where like Palace had 2 chances and they scored both of them, and one of them was from 35 yards out. It just was like very difficult to beat City. Where you look at like the last couple of games, like the Brighton game sticks out to me. Where like Brighton deserved to win that game. There was not when they won, it was like it would have been an injustice for Brighton not to have won that game.
City played well first half, though, mate. If City go 2-0 up first, I think City win the game.
I think is it Doku that misses one when they're like right?
That's where margins and that's where momentum in football matches change completely. Do you know what I mean? But I agree with you. As soon as he brings Belabor off the bench, it's a different. Like he just run all over them and like create 8 or 10 chances, whatever it is in the second half. This Southampton team, though, mate, I just think that the style's perfect for Liverpool in terms of how they want to play and how Liverpool press. He will not change his style. He's already said this, Russell Martin. He will not. I think he's trying to do the Vincent Kompany technique of getting a new job. Of like, if I just stick to my philosophy and different club will come in who fancies that philosophy. And that's what's exactly happened to Vincent Kompany, who gets the Bayern Munich job on the basis of getting Burnley relegated. But there's that. I'm not worried as such with this game, far from it. I think Liverpool win. But I just think it'll be a tougher game than we think. I just think Liverpool will win 2-0. I do think that. But I just think it'll be a really tougher game than we think. I would say it's going to be an easier game if City lost on against Spurs. Because I think the fucking lads would be like, fuck this, lads, these are getting it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I was going to say the only way I'd be more confident is if we played Southampton before City played Tottenham or City loses. Like for whatever reason, sometimes that just like lifts the pressure off in years past. If like we play first, we usually always get the job done. City play first and get 3 points. Sometimes it always just creeps in the back of our minds.
We never really capitalised on City. I would say that used to, and we never feel like we used to capitalise. That's why that Villa game felt so big. Because we know what happened, and we were like, we have to go. And that's why, and of course, the timing of the kickoff helped. It's 8 p.m. at Anfield under the lights on a Saturday night when the lads have been out since 10:30 in the morning. Do you know what I mean? And they're like, fuck this, they just lost, right? We're going in there. It's that kind of atmosphere. So I do think that is a thing as well.
This is why we get along great with Ravi. He's like, I'm not getting hyped up on these wins if they don't amount to a trophy. I don't know. I mean, you gotta get the wins to get to the trophy.
No, you can't put the roof on a house before you build a foundation. Like, how do you not get excited? I mean, even if we fall short, even let's say we clean out 82 points, we lose by 4 points to City this year. It's Slot's first season against, it would be a 6-time Premier League defending champion. Like, I don't know how you don't get excited about the wins. Now, I'm not getting excited about like we're going to win a trophy, but I don't see how you don't find this exciting.
Hold on, let me ask you this, because I mean, I'm excited just because the thought was these were supposed to be growing pains.
Yes, yeah,
right.
Exactly.
These first, 8 to 10 weeks were supposed to be growing pains, and this is where we're at. Common sense or the optimism will tell you that the play and everything will only improve with a new manager as things get established. So we'll see that. And I think I have a bit more confidence on us staying healthier and less tired legs based on what we're playing, but we'll probably see that when it's like February, March. So Kazi is already on the bus, on the parade bus, waiting for it to take off. Like he's just impatiently waiting. Gordo, where are you at? Are you even in the parking lot walking towards the bus? Where are you at? And if City loses or loses points and we beat Southampton, are you sitting next to Kazi?
City drop 6 points in the next 4, and I am starting to look at flights for Palace on the last day of the season, for sure. Right now, where my head is at is we win this weekend. We are within touching distance of 40-point safety. We will not get relegated in Slot's first season. We are right there. It'll be December, and we'll have safety. We will not be relegated.
35 was enough this year, maybe. For us. 35 should be enough to stay up. But no, in all seriousness, though, good, right? I think if you win the next 2, I just think if you win the next 2, 8 points clear of City. Yeah, I know you have Newcastle away and Everton away. I get it, but I also think 4 points out of there is still really good. I just think that I actually think that City might go. He did it. By the way, he did this when we won the league last time.
Yeah, he did. He took the wheels off. Yep.
and I'm going to win the Champions League, and I'm going to try that, and I'll win the FA. You know what I mean? I'll try and win a domestic because it's done. And I think Pep's very good at that. Going, we'll keep you honest. We'll keep you honest.
Yeah.
But if I have to take De Bruyne off on 70 minutes because I've got a Champions League game midweek, then I'm doing it. Do you know what I mean? I think that's what he did last time. And I think you could really damage them mentally if you beat them, if you win the next two.
Roger says, I mean, City has been the worst there, but let's look at this. I mean, we have had times where City usually takes off in the second half of the season.
Yeah.
City has had moments in the past where they struggled. The difference has been, I can remember a lot of weekends where City lost points on Saturday and we went and wet the bed on Sunday as well. Like, we did not capitalize and build a lead. We were like, oh, they lost points, we lost points. We're still together, like, even and stuff. I feel like that's why, like you're saying, Kazi, that Villa game was huge.
Yeah.
Because those 2 weekends where you win, doesn't matter if they lose points. If you don't win, you're still, like, at the same level. By winning 2 points at a time, 3 points at a time, I think that's, like, the biggest difference. I don't know. Even as I worry as a lifestyle, I'm pretty optimistic of the season because I do see a bit more different attitude from the team. Maybe they're playing a bit more relaxed. Maybe last year's pressure was too much. Klopp's last season, all that kind of stuff. I don't know what it is. Maybe they're relieved. Maybe these guys on the last year of the contract are like, you know what, whatever, let's go out and play. This could be the last run. I don't know what it is. It just feels like the team is a bit more relaxed, Gordo, in terms of how they go about business. Maybe it just looks like that because the guy on the side is a bit calmer. I don't know.
Look, sometimes, especially as we're trying to do the analysis of an entire season in an hour podcast, we forget to look at like where we are. And if you take one step back, just one step, and you realize that if City drop points this weekend and we win, in September, you looked at this time of in the same week, you'd be playing Real Madrid and City. And City dropped points this weekend, and those two become the most insignificant games in terms of like where like Real Madrid need 3 points. They need them. And City, if they drop points this weekend and we pick up all 3, they need 3 points against us. And so the pressure's all on them. And so I think like that is a great like litmus test of where we are and how comfortable this season has been for us, is that we could potentially take one of maybe the most stressful weeks ever if we needed points and made it into like, let's just fucking enjoy this. We can go out and we could do something really big right here. We can make a huge statement on the season, both domestically and in Europe. And I think that says so much about Slot.
Tim, I think there's a party of what you just said about the players looking more relaxed. I don't think it's that. I just think it's experience. I just think they've been here before and we know what to do. And I think that's the difference between Arsenal and Liverpool. So, for example, I will give you an analogy, a kind of thing of like where Arsenal had men sent off and lost games. Liverpool had a man sent off against Newcastle and came back from behind and won 2-1. That's experience. Yeah. That's not like sticking in the game with tactical nous and then bringing your subs off. That's what a different, you know what I mean? These lads have done this before. Like, this is the difference between, I know what you're saying, Tim, where we had to capitalise. Liverpool don't need to capitalise. Liverpool are leading. City need to capitalise on Liverpool. There's a difference here. Do you know what I mean? The one time
that's because we capitalised the last month.
Yeah, but now Liverpool are in the driver's seat and you go, well, you're chasing us. There's only one time we've chased Pep Guardiola. Sorry, we've been the leader in the Pep Guardiola race. And that's when we won the league. Yeah. All the other times we have to catch them and we're relying on them to drop points. I just feel like we're at a stage where these lads know what they're about. They know what to do. They've been here before. Last year is such an anomaly because of the injuries. It's such an anomaly. I think Liverpool win the league last year. Mm-hmm. But the injuries destroy us in the end. And, we get over the line February and March and things with players and all the players come back just a bit too late in the season. I think if they come back with 5 games before with more match fitness, I think Liverpool win the league. Mm-hmm. But I just think we're they're very experienced, man. They're really clever and they have the nous. I always go back to, I mentioned it yesterday on the Thursday show, lads, where I don't know if you remember this, but after we won the Champions League in 2019, Klopp and Pep Linders did a video watching like Jamie Webster on the puff stage and stuff like that. It's like a 40-minute video going about things. And they go to the Champions League final half time. And Klopp says it. I went to Virgil, went, you're going long all the time, stop going long. Because they were winning 1-0. And he was like, why? It was sound, we're comfortable. He said, they're offering nothing in the game. They're offering nothing. And Klopp went, are you sure? And he went, yeah, we're sound. Like, we're so comfortable in this game, it's fine. If you actually, you might be able to find the video on LFC TV, and that always stands the test of time in the back of my head, where a manager goes to the players in the Champions League final and goes, "What do you reckon?" And that's what. But going back to my main point of now, that's trusting your players to go, "What do you think?" Because it's fine to come in if you're Andy Robertson going, "Fuck me, Savino's having my kicks down here. Get Costas on, I can't run." Like, and I think that's okay to have that conversation with managers and that trust. And I think that's what the managers instilled in these players this year, is that trust and that belief, but also the experience where the manager goes, "I am new to this as well, you know. I am new to this. Yeah. You've done this before. What you reckon?" And I do think that conversation happens more often than not with teammates and managers.
And I think that's why what Slot has done is more impressive, because I talked about this before. It's a lot more difficult to get people like Trent and Van Dijk and stuff like on your side and on your page, because they might feel like we've done this already, but be able to that give and take and be able to like implement your own things. I think it's like, that's a lot harder than, like Amarim going to United now and like trying to implement something. And he's done excellent. I mean, I think Ravi was saying earlier, I'm not saying I don't celebrate these wins. The same Liverpool fans will moan saying there were Liverpool fans selling half the team and buying like 18 people at halftime of the Arsenal game. So those people are just gonna like overreact. I think one of the biggest strengths that has enabled Slot to do what he's done is the fact that we've kept the same team. I think there's a lot to be said about keeping everybody there. It's the same group with a couple of tweaks. And let's face it, when you look at last season, most people would have probably said, we had over summer, we said, these are glaring spots and stuff like that. But it's a lot easier to say, this is what we got. And there'll be some additions. I don't know. We'll talk about January in a different episode, because I'm sure that'll take forever. But I don't see a lot happening in January, because you don't want to mess with the chemistry you have now.
Right. I think that's an excellent point that you just said about keeping the squad together. I think it is an excellent point, because the one thing that Liverpool can sit down, if you're Michael Edwards and Richard Hughes, listen, they've got bigger issues to worry about right now with the contracts. They can sit there to Slot and go, these are the best players you will ever work with. So, and what does that mean? That means we're not going to sign players that you want if we don't think they're up to the level. So you've got to go in and find the level yourself of what you're dealing with. Yeah. You know what I mean? Let's get this right. You're going to walk in and go, Virgil van Dijk's the greatest defender you've ever seen, and you've played footy. So if you come into me and go, I think we need a centre-half, well, have a look at these ones that we've got first. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I do think here's that conversation to go, we'll give you a year, we'll do one or two if we see in the market, for example, with Chiesa. And this isn't me backing the strategy, by the way, far from it. But I do think it actually looks a bit clever now to go to Slot after the first year. You've won the league, whatever happens. You've had a look at these players. What do you think you need now? Because you might have thought you needed a right back, but we signed Trent to a 5-year deal. Now you don't. You might thought you need a centre mid, then you go, fucking hell, Curtis Jones is really good, isn't he? I only seen bits of him last year. Now he's fucking boss.
What about Gravenberg? What's a Gravenberg, right?
Gravenberg is a great example. By the way, he's also seen Gravenberg probably battered him for Ajax when he was at Ajax. So there is that part of that conversation. You know what I mean? So there is that part to go to Slot. Have a look for 12 months at these lads. Come back to us in the summer. Then tell us what you want. Because you might actually see some of these lads coming back, like a Bajcetic. You might need a centre mid, and Bajcetic just played 40 games or something, comes back and you go, fuck me, he's good. Do you know what I mean? So I do think there is that conversation to have as well with Slot.
Go ahead, Gordo.
I for Ravi, just when someone is moaning, this is just for everyone that's listening. When someone's moaning on Facebook, the first thing you do is you click on their name, and it'll show you everything they've said in that group. And I bet you they've moaned an awful lot about stupid. I bet you on September 15th, the day after we lost to Forest, that the sky was falling. I guarantee it. And then you look, and then they're like, Slot's best friend. Yeah, and so like you just watch. And if the person's unhinged, you just forget it. What they're talking about.
It's sports. It's the emotion. You've got to celebrate the wins when you can. If you're only in it to win trophies, fella, then it's going to be a long, long support in life. It really
wasn't it you a long time ago, maybe in the summer, that just said like it's watching the sport is more about the moment. You're not looking in moments. I think it was we were talking about that John Oliver clip when he was talking about Klopp, and it's just like you don't remember the trophy. You remember like the Barcelona game. We didn't win a trophy, but everyone remembers where you were and what you were doing. And it's more about those small little moments that you piece together. And at the end, you're like, didn't we win a trophy that year? Oh yeah, that's right, the Champions League. Yeah, because the Champions League wasn't that memorable of a game when we got to it. I mean,
and I get what Ravi is saying in the sense that, and I think it's because we've lost so many titles so close. You know what I mean? So like there is that feeling of, yeah, this is great, but then at the end it's going to be a disappointment. So it kind of like takes away sometimes from your enjoyment of the moment because
definitely.
it's not going to amount to. So I definitely understand like his perspective of saying that, and it's hard, and I'm working on it. Join me, Ravi. I'm working on it. Like you got to kind of enjoy the moment as much as possible too.
Enjoy the moments when you're in them.
Like get the 3 points and make that the weekend, and there we go.
Not worry about Maxi Rodriguez against Bolton, right?
Exactly. Maxi Rodriguez against Bolton. It's just that's what moments are about. Though. That's what football's about. Is that moment of life when something happens, which is the greatest moment. And I always say this: finals are not enjoyable. They're not.
No.
So nerve-wracking.
Finals are great. I don't enjoy a final. It's fucking shit. Like, especially the way Liverpool win finals. Like, Liverpool don't win finals an easy way. We always make it dead hard for ourselves. So, just enjoy the moments, man. Honestly, if Liverpool, I say it all the time with the game last year. I think it was the 4-3 against Spurs. And everyone was like, I'd rather win the game 3-0. I'm like, no. Give me that moment.
Oh, that Jota second one? Yeah.
With Richarlison, the former Everton player, thinks he's got a point with Spurs' greatest ever comeback in the Premier League. And then Jota goes up the other end and scores. It's the greatest moments of your life to watch Richarlison go like that on the halfway line. It's the moments that you're in a form, man. It's amazing.
The one year, I forget which, I think it may have been 18 when we lost by a point. And we were like at the death with Tottenham and Divock Origi, like, there's a scramble on the line, and all he does is just touch it over, and we win the game in like the 95th minute. Like those moments.
Like the Newcastle away game, and we're literally in a death with City, and then Divock Origi scores the most deflected that ever. I don't think he means to put in that corner, and you win it. It's just that moment.
But I know, like I say, I can relate though. Like I can think of, it's different in football. I don't know why that is. I mean, you don't follow as many American sports, Kazi. I know you do, Gordo. Like there are times where you have these huge playoff wins, but it gets forgotten when you don't go all the way. Like to me, like I can think of some 49er wins that I was like, holy shit, what a game that was. But then if it doesn't amount to anything, it kind of like disappears. I don't feel like football is the same way. I still remember that, the Ali header, that 4-3 win, that Villa away. Even if like some of those have not led to something big, but football, I don't know why it's like different. It just ends up being more like moments that kind of like get engraved. I don't know what it is, but hey, if you're joining us this morning, thanks a lot. Hit the like, subscribe, and all that kind of good stuff. We'll be back tomorrow for the live watch along for City Spurs, and then if Spurs win, we'll be partying even more. But before we go, as always, let's end with some predictions. Kazi, you were saying 2-0?
Yeah, 2-0. I think it'll be a tough 2-0. I think it'll be like a little bit like the Villa game. I actually anticipate Southampton having more of the ball.
Go to
3-1 and Southampton score first.
Fuck you. Yeah, I'll go with the slot special.
Could you imagine Spurs winning and then Southampton taking the league?
Yeah.
I think Liverpool's like my head. Don't join the Discord channel. I would kill them all. Honestly.
And Darwin better not be starting. Or Gally is somewhere else with his family. He's not on Discord because I will go nuts. Darwin's missed 2 sitters. It's 1-0. City loses.
I mean, that's going to be interesting too. I mean, I'm assuming Gakpo's. He did say something about let's see how the South American players come back and stuff like that. I don't think he has a lot of options with Nunez. But he definitely has an option with starting Gakpo or Jones or something like that if McAllister and Diaz can't go. And that speaks to, I know, man. That's why I'm optimistic. Even I'm optimistic because you look at the squad and that's not like a huge. You're like, oh, Gakpo is starting instead of. Can you imagine in the past instead of Mane starting? Where the fuck would be starting at left wing, like Ox or somebody? Who would have started for Mane on left wing in the past?
Some Saki Minamino back in the action. You know what I mean?
That's the thing, we're like, oh, Gakpo's going to start. We're good, kind of a thing. And that's kind of like a lot.
He did Div left wing a couple of times. He did Origi left wing. And he did it against, I think it was Watford at home once, and Div scored, cutting in like a Gakpo goal. Yes. It was a Watford at home. And I was like, what is going on? Div wasn't in the game all game, and then he just scored towards the end. It was great. Yeah.
Good old Divock. Where is Divock now? Is he still playing?
I don't think he's got a club. I just think he's walking around LA going, I'm the fucking man around here. Like he should. Like he deserves to go, do you know who I am? You know what I've done? I have had so many
thanks a lot for joining us. hit that subscribe button, grab a friend. We are almost at 1,000. We just need a little push in the right direction. 978 over here. So we need 22 friends to be grabbed by the ear and drag their butt over here to subscribe. But
do we have anything special for your 1,000 subscriber? Are you doing anything special?
What should we do?
Ooh. Well, we've already done 24
No,
hours.
I don't know which direction you went
podcast.
with that one. You were like, ooh. A night with Kazi?
It'll be like a little Christmas special, a little Christmas lock-in special.
Yeah,
You know what? We should. Yes. We can maybe send them like an American Scouser gift pack or something like that.
Yes. Like an American Scouser Christmas special of we all get dressed up and tell us.
1,000 person. You know, people are going to like unsubscribe, subscribe, or something like that. But
someone's got to come with like a Christmas past of like Roy Hodgson. Woo!
Have a great Friday, everybody. We'll see you guys tomorrow. Take care.